You are about to be witness to criminal faces from the past brought before a police court. Regular viewers of my channel will know that I like to present you content that reflects the lives of everyday people from days gone by, including first-hand accounts and genuine conversations. We are lucky that a number of philanthropists, both here and in America, documented the struggles of life for the poor and working classes. If this content interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel to hear more authentic voices from the Victorian and Edwardian periods. I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up and share it widely with friends and family. These two things really do show your support and help the channel grow so I can bring you more. Thank you. In this video, you will learn about criminals in North Shields, England in the early 20th century. Thanks to police identification records and a description of their charges, we can understand the difficult lives that led to wrongdoing. What's more remarkable about these accounts is that the photographs of the accused provide a connection to the nefarious activities described in a way more difficult to convey by text alone. These are the criminal faces from the past. Annie Anderson, arrested on 25th of August 1903. At North Shields, Annie Anderson, 34, was charged with keeping a disorderly house in Liddell Street on July 1st. Sergeant G. Scougal proved the case. Chief Constable Hewish said that the prisoner was convicted for a similar offence on March 28th of this year and committed for 1 month. Immediately she came out of prison, she went back to the room and continued to carry on the house in the same manner as before. The complaints received by the police about it were serious. Defendant, who pleaded not guilty, was committed for 3 months with hard labour. Annie Anderson may have been involved in prostitution. This is made more explicit in a report of a later arrest in the Shields Daily Gazette for 21st of July 1904. Disorderly house being a euphemism for brothel. William Lavery, arrested on 15th of December 1904 at North Shields. William Lavery, 22, labourer, lowlights, was charged with stealing a quantity of haddock valued 4 shillings 6 pence, the property of William Purdy, from a stand on the Fish Quay on the 14th this month. A boy employed on one of the fishing boats deposed that he saw the defendant hoist a basket of haddocks from the steam trawler Wild Rose and carry it away. P.C. Spindler said he arrested the accused behind Clifford's Fort, and he found the stolen haddocks in a gutting shed. The accused, who pleaded guilty and said he gave himself up to the police, was fined 10 shillings and costs. William Lavery also appeared before the magistrates in the following year. The Shields Daily News for 1st of September 1905 reported: John Anderson, Edward Taberner, Ernest Schultz, William Lavery, William Stott and William Small were summoned for playing at pitch and toss at the Lowlights and were each fined 5 shillings and costs, with the exception of Anderson, who, having only made his second appearance, was fined 2 shillings 6 pence and costs. He also appears to have gone AWOL during the First World War. The Shields Daily Gazette for 11th of December 1914 reports: when William Lavery, 35, soldier, lowlights, was charged at North Shields today with being an absentee from the 14th Northumberland Fusiliers, stationed at Aylesbury on December 7th. Detective Mason said the defendant had travelled from Aylesbury under the seat of a railway carriage to North Shields. He had no permission to have leave. Defendant was remanded until tomorrow to await an escort. Sarah Garbutt, at North Shields Police Court today, 6th of November 1907, Sarah Garbutt, 58, married, Howden, was charged with having stolen on the 4th from the doors of 4 shops a quantity of dress material, shirts and towels, the property of Messrs. M.J. Fisher, Thomas Heslop and James Southwick. Evidence was given to the effect that the goods were pawned by the prisoner. Accused pleaded guilty and said she would not have committed the theft had they not been starving. The husband of the prisoner, who was in court, was called forward. He appeared to be a decent, respectable old man, and he told the magistrates they had been suffering from starvation. They had never been in a court in their lives before, and he could assure the magistrates that if they dealt leniently with his wife, she would not come back again. The Mayor. What are you?
I'm a miner by trade, but I lost my employment.
Why?
Through old age.
How do you live?
We depend on a son, but we only get from him 21 shillings or 22 shillings a week, and we have to keep him. He is a young man, and he gets no allowance for rent and receives no coal, so we have a good deal to do with the money.
The chairman said they had given the case serious consideration. They had almost been disposed to send the accused to prison, the thefts having been so continuous, but as this was apparently her first offence, they would take a lenient view and give her the benefit of the First Offenders Act, and bind her over in the sum of 20 shillings to be of good behaviour for 12 months, accepting the husband as bond. Charles Cunningham, 28, a young man, very respectably dressed, and residing at 14 Widrington Terrace, arrested on 9th of February 1903, was charged at North Shields this morning with indecent exposure at the back of Percy Gardens, Tynemouth, yesterday afternoon. P.C. Scott deposed to concealing himself in an empty house and watching the defendant's conduct. His evidence was corroborated by William Davidson, a resident at Percy Gardens. Defendant pleaded hard to the bench to impose a fine. If he were sent to prison, he would be ruined for life. He would not dare go back to his work or his home. Mr. Charles Foote, who presided, said the bench considered it a most disgraceful case. They had decided to send defendant to prison for 1 month, and they also wished to thank Mr. Davidson for the assistance he had given the police. Isabella Scott, arrested on 27th of September 1904 for larceny. Isabella Scott was charged with having stolen a sovereign belonging to a man named Patrick Clark yesterday. Prosecutor said he had been visiting the Fleet and on returning went into the Red Lamp public house in Clive Street with 2 friends. He put down a sovereign to pay for the drinks and the accused picked it up. He went for a policeman and had her arrested. When charged, she denied having taken the money. She called a woman who was in the bar at the time as a witness, and she said she heard the prosecutor say that they had been larking with a sovereign, and that the accused had put it into her mouth. Prosecutor had then taken her by the throat, and she had swallowed it. The magistrates committed her to prison for 5 days. Elizabeth Dawson, dressmaker, arrested on 20th of June 1907 for pawning customers' skirts. At the North Shields Police Court today, Elizabeth Dawson, 52, described as a widow of Sydney Street, was charged with being the bailee of 2 skirts, the property of Mrs. Harrison of Bamborough Terrace and Mrs. Dickinson of Whitley, and did convert them to her own use. It was explained in evidence that Mrs. Harrison and Mrs. Dickinson gave the accused, who is a dressmaker, the 2 skirts to alter. Instead of doing this, she pledged them at Messrs. Findlay Mitchell and Company's pawn shop in Church Street. She told the assistant at that place of business that the skirts were her own property, and she, being an old customer, he believed her statement and took them in, advancing 2 shillings 6 upon each. Accused said she was forced to do as she had because her landlady was pressing her for payment. The bench gave her another chance, just binding her over to be of good behaviour for 6 months in the sum of £1. They thought drink had been the cause of her downfall and advised her to sign the pledge. She undertook to do so. Sadly, this wasn't to be her last brush with the law. The Shields Daily News for 2nd of November 1907 reports Elizabeth Dawson, 52, widow, 11 Sydney Street, drunk and incapable in Church Way, 5 shillings and costs. James Regan. At North Shields, James Regan, 22, labourer, South Shields, arrested on 22nd of July 1905, was charged with being drunk and disorderly on the New Quay on the 21st of this month, and with assaulting James Berry. Sergeant Wilson stated that at 11:15 p.m. he saw Regan rush at Berry, trip him up and kick him. He sent a policeman to follow Regan, who had gone on board the direct ferry, while he, witness, picked up the other man, who was stunned by the assault. The complainant, who is a workman on board the Tyne commissioner's hoppers, said the accused asked him for a match, and when he replied that he had no matches, Regan turned round and tripped him up. He gave the man no provocation. There was a severe abrasion on the left side of the complainant's face, which he said was caused by the assault. The defendant said that Berry caught him by the shoulders and butted him with his head, but this was denied. Accused was fined 2 shillings 6 and costs or 7 days for the drunkenness, and was committed for 1 month for the assault. Janet Sanderson, alias Bell, arrested for robbery on 15th of April 1907. At North Shields Police Court today, Margaret Harker, Normanby, and Janet Sanderson, Newcastle, were charged on demand with having stolen from the person of Joseph Connaty 6 and a pot of rum on the 13th this month. Prosecutor, who is a shipwright living at number 2 Reed Street, stated that at 11:15 p.m. on the date named he was in Bedford Street, near to the Tiger Stairs, when he was accosted by the 2 women who asked him to go with them. They went to a room in Liddell Street, and after he had given them each 1 shilling, they knocked him about, went through his pockets, and took 6 and a pot of rum. Later he was kicked downstairs by a man, and, upon getting outside, he saw some police officers and informed them of what had occurred. P.C. Graham and Sergeant Wilson spoke to finding one of the women crouching in a recess in the yard of a house in Liddell Street. Chief Constable Hewish said he had made inquiries concerning the accused and had found that they had been convicted for larceny. Harker made her 47th appearance, Thomas Bell his 6th appearance, and Jackson his 8th appearance. The last named had been imprisoned for shopbreaking and robbery with violence. The charge was stoutly denied by the accused, who were each committed to prison for a month with hard labour. Michael Macaulay. At North Shields Police Court today, 15th of August 1907, Michael Macaulay, 19, labourer, Sunderland, and Francis Burke, 21, brass founder, belonging to Cornwall, were charged with breaking and entering a stall on the Long Sands and stealing a quantity of biscuits and toffee and 2 glasses, the property of Mr. A. Stevenson. P.C. King stated that on Thursday last at 7 a.m. he was examining the cabins on the sands. There was an opening in the deals of Mr. Stevenson's cabin, and Burke was looking out of it. He told witness that he was watching the bathers. Burke gave his address, and witness was satisfied that it was correct, and allowed him to come out of the cabin, and saw Macaulay in a corner with 2 boxes of biscuits, a bottle of toffee, and 2 bottles of lemonade with the stoppers drawn. The window of the inner cabin, in which the goods were stocked, was broken. Macaulay said, "I were only going to finish the biscuits." He took him into custody, and later arrested Burke, who in reply to the charge said, "Aye, that is quite right." Mr. G.R. Duncan, who defended Burke, said he was a lad who had hitherto borne an excellent character, but had fallen out of employment, and getting into Macaulay's company, he yielded to temptation at a time when he was very hungry. The chief constable has kindly promised to assist him to go to sea. Burke was bound over in the sum of £5 for 6 months, and Macaulay was remanded for a day to enable the police to make further inquiries concerning him. Charles Nixon. At North Shields Police Court today, 20th of December 1907, Charles Nixon, 30, bookmaker's clerk, South Shields, was charged with attempting to obtain 4 shillings by false pretences from a shopkeeper on Thursday. The prosecutor stated that the accused told him that he had been fined £10 and wanted to get his money back. He asked the witness for 4 shillings to put on a horse which had won a race that day, and stated that he was working for a big firm of bookmakers and would send the money up as though it had been put on before the race. The winnings would be £50, which he offered to divide with witness. He, however, declined to have anything to do with him. The accused said he did not see how he could be guilty of false pretences in simply asking for money to put on a horse. He was committed for 7 days. George Smith, alias Lamb, arrested on 15th of March 1905, was charged with begging from door to door in Beverley Terrace, Cullercoats, and was sent to prison for 14 days. P.C. Darling stated that when he spoke to the accused, he said he was trying to sell 2 loads of wood. Witness took him to the house, which he had just left, and the servant girl said the man had been begging. On being searched, he had 5 pence in copper in his possession. Chief Constable Hewish said the result of inquiries made regarding the accused was that he had been 56 times before the magistrates in various places, for all sorts of offences, including housebreaking and assault and robbery. Mr. Charles Foote, the chairman, said the accused had a shocking bad record. He would be committed to prison for 14 days with hard labour. Alexander Clay. At North Shields Police Court today, 4th of August 1905, Alexander Clay, a young man, was charged on remand with having stolen a brace, valued at £1, the property of Thomas Young Miller, Cartwright, Upper Toll Street. The prosecutor said the accused had done work for him. On the 24th of July, he missed a brace from his office and gave information to the police. A week later, he was shown the brace in a pawn shop. Margaret Clay, mother of the accused, said that on July 22nd, her son asked her to pledge a brace for a young man who had no money. She pledged it and received 2 shillings, 3 pence and a ticket, which she gave to her son. P.C. Radcliffe gave evidence of arresting and charging the accused, who replied, that's right. On being charged with the theft, the accused said, I took it because he owed me money. The prosecutor admitted that he gave the accused 2 jobs to do, either for money or for a bicycle. He elected to take the bicycle and commenced to do the work, but it was not yet finished. The clerk, Mr. R.F. Kidd, said,
You had no right to help yourself to Mr. Miller's tools.
The magistrate fined him 10 shillings, including costs. It was stated that the lad was charged with stealing a ring last October and was bound over for 6 months. Accused who had nothing to say was committed to prison for 6 weeks in the 2nd Division, and the chairman, Mr. T. Young, hoped that the lenient treatment would be appreciated by him. William Morrissey, alias Smith, 20, arrested for sleeping out on 11th of July 1904. The Shields Daily Gazette for 11th of July 1904 reported, At North Shields, Charles Winlow, 53, tramp, no fixed abode, was charged with lodging in a haystack in Mariners Lane without having visible means of subsistence, and was sent to prison for 7 days. William Wadham, Tyne Dock, William Smith, or Morrison, shoeblack, and William Patton, no fixed abode, were charged with lodging in a haypike at Kenner's Dean Farm. Wadham and Smith were each committed for 7 days, and Patton was committed for 14 days. The Shields Daily Gazette for 7th of June 1904 reports, 2 youths named Joseph Leach, 52 Wilson Street, and William Morrissey, no fixed abode, were found by P.C. Twiddy sleeping in a railway carriage on the N.E.R. siding in Garden Lane at 3:15 this morning. Relating the facts to the South Shields magistrates, the officer said that when he roused Leach, the defendant set himself in a fighting attitude, while the other sat up on the seat, lit a cigarette, and refused to leave. The magistrates fined them 5 shillings and costs each. Contemporary attitudes to rough sleeping can be seen in a report in the Shields Daily Gazette on 5th of October 1903. At Jarrow today, John Smith, William Cooper, James Bell, young men who said they came to the town in search of work, were charged with sleeping in Palmer's works last night. P.C. Lowry gave evidence, and Superintendent Fleming said that the county was swarming with fellows like the defendants, who should be made to seek shelter in the workhouses. Defendants were sent to prison for 7 days. The Shields Daily Gazette of 8th of October 1903 contains an article entitled, Lazy Loafers. There are some people who will neither work nor want. They are the typical loafers we can see in the streets any day. Apparently we have a fairly good stock of them at North Shields. It is not because of depression of trade either. The other morning no fewer than 6 of such individuals were placed in the dock on a charge of sleeping out. The officer had found them all huddled together in an empty room during the night, and they could not give a satisfactory account of themselves. When questioned by the magistrates, the police officer stated that all the defendants were lazy loafers who had never worked for a considerable time.
They did nothing but lounge about the streets during the day and then obtained shelter in some empty room or outhouse at night. The magistrates marked their sense of the offence by sending them all to prison for a month each with hard labour. A month of hard work will probably do them a vast of good and will enable them to shake off that habitual tired feeling.